After playing roughly 20 hours of Dawn of War 3, most of which have been spent in the game's multiplayer, I can firmly say that I'm happy with my purchase despite the game not being a perfect 10 out of 10. Today we're going to talk through a 2 vs 2 multiplayer match, going over some of the nitty-gritty details of battle, and rambling about other Dawn of War related stuff in between skirmishes. I'll be playing as the Orks, my teammate is an Eldar, and we'll be fighting against Eldar and Space Marines. Alright, let's get into the action. The first thing we're going to do is start up our build queue with 3 groups of boys, the basic melee combat unit for the Orks, and my teammate already sending off a ping on the map. He wants to secure the center node, which is an elite point generator along with 2 requisition generators, and that's a pretty valuable thing to have. Getting elite units is insanely powerful, and if you can get them faster than the people you're fighting, then you have a pretty significant advantage. Now, my teammate, I'm going to call him Bob, he's rushing his, I believe they're called Dire Avengers. You're going to have to excuse me if I say the names of some of these units wrong. I haven't played as all of the factions as extensively as I've played with the Orks, but he's moving his ranged units into the center area, and he's trying to get that engage off. The enemy was trying to build a listening post, but that's going to get shut down. The Bone Singer, the builder unit for the Eldar, is going to retreat, so we're going to not have to worry about that thing pew-pewing us while we try and do our business. So far, though, Bob and I, we're fairly well coordinated, and I think that that extra bit of coordination that we have right now is giving us a significant advantage. But it looks like the enemy team is starting to realize that they're not going to be able to just sit back and just get points for free. The tactical marine's going to come out and help the Eldar. I'm having to retreat my boys from the front line. I channeled his special ability, I don't remember what it's called, but when it finishes channeling, he gets a shield, and that shield no doubt provided him with the extra defense that he needed to get out alive. Retreating units is always better than just letting them die on the front lines, because even though you get refunded a portion of their requisition cost when they die in the early phases, it's always cheaper to reinforce a squad as opposed to building a whole new squad. And finally, turning my boys on the unfinished listening post, gonna bang that thing out, and also the unfinished elite point generator is going to fall. So overall, we're coming out of that first little skirmish on top. We didn't manage to secure the node completely, but we did a lot of damage, and still got some action going on the front line, sending my boys in, and I'm considering going for an attack. I put out a ping for an attack, but I immediately turned around, changed my mind. I saw some extra Eldar coming in, so I'm just gonna have to run back and go for the reinforcements. And I started my Gretchen, the builder unit for the Orks, constructing a WAAAGH tower, and as soon as that's done, if I decide to use it, we're going to see the true potential of the Orks and why they're such a devastating force. They're hands down my favorite faction, because they have this extra bit of premeditation to all of their maneuvers that the other factions have, but not in this kind of way. It's just their unique mechanics are just really fun. I like the Orks a lot. On that note, though, the fact that there are only 3 factions available in Dawn of War 3, that's a hotly contested issue. There's always the debate, you know, is it better to have more factions that are kind of samey, or to have a few factions that are very diverse? And I'm of the belief that just having a couple of factions with a lot of diversity between them is a bit better. And it looks like I'm preparing my Ork boys for a pretty big assault, and I'm using my Gretchen to scout out the rest of the map. He has the ability to turn invisible, so that'll allow me to see what the enemy's doing, switching back over to see what they're doing with this top area. I want to check to see if they have a listening post, and it doesn't look like they do. They've only got a couple of Dire Avengers there guarding it for now, so that may be a good opportunity for us to strike. But for now, Bob and I are turning our attention back to the middle, and that means the boys are going to have to get to work. But we're seeing a little bit of that premeditation coming into play. I'm getting ready to put down my first building besides the WAAAGH tower, and this is the heavy infantry production building. I don't remember the name of it. Again, I should probably look this stuff up, right? Hold on, I'll go look it up. It's called the Daka Hut. Daka Hut. Now, my teammate, Mr. Bob over there, he's gotten a little bit overzealous and he started attacking without me. But as soon as I start channeling the WAAAGH tower, he realizes what's going on and he starts to wait. And I've pinged for the attack, but I'm not going to go until the music finishes. I wish I could get the radio edit for this song. And I'm also channeling the shout ability for the boys. So as soon as they get that active, they've got a shield. The WAAAGH's going to come on. They get that boost to their movement speed as well, and we charge in. I go in with my melee units, and I'm not seeing anything right away, but as soon as one of the boys touch a patch of grass that was concealing some of the enemy units, I shift my attention over to that and allow Bob to focus on the listening post. So my melee units are chasing these guys down. We're probably not going to be able to kill any of them because they're retreating very effectively, but just getting that damage on is going to give us some breathing room. It's going to force them to reinforce. It's going to make them spend some of their requisition, but it's also going to give us room to maneuver around the map and possibly get a good assault going. And now I'm turning my attention back to that top node where I was sending my Gretchen to scout before, and we're going to find out if they did in fact build a listening post there or if they've left it, relatively undefended. Something you got to remember though is that power nodes do not further your victory condition. They give you the potential to generate more resources if you secure it and hold on to it and upgrade it, but it's not, it's not going to allow you to win. You can't win with just capturing power nodes. And from the looks of things, the listening post was constructed on this node, but there aren't a lot of defenders here, so I'm going to activate that shout ability on the boys, and we're just going to bang it out very quickly. It is going to fall with very little resistance. The dire Avengers from the enemy team are going to come through, but I summoned an elite unit a while back, the Storm Boys, and they have a pretty cool ability to send out one member of their party as a sort of suicide bomber to stun a group of enemies. Now, we managed to clear out the watchtower and all of the nodes that were upgraded on that point, and we're just going to uncap it and eventually go for the retreat because there is an enemy elite there as well. My Storm Boys are very bruised up at this moment, so there's not too much that we can do. Unfortunately, though, I don't have many other units that are capable of defending. I'm working on building some... why am I forgetting what everything is called? Hold on, I'll look it up. Looters. They're called looters. They are the heavy machine gunners for the Ork faction. Now, I made a bit of a misplay here. I could have activated that WAAAGH channel long before my units got there so that it would have been sort of in sync with their arrival back to it, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference in the long run because the enemies have a significant mass of units. Sending off one more Storm Boy to suicide and then going to send out a ping requesting some defense, but I don't know how many units Bob has available to him. From the looks of things, he's spread out around the map fairly well. He's working on harassing the enemy shield generator, which is a good thing. So if I can keep them preoccupied on my end, keep that shield generator protected, then that'll be good for us. Sending out another ping to defend the shield generator, but I finally noticed that Bob is most definitely doing the right thing by attacking them while we're being attacked, so I'm going to have to prioritize defense. Now, the opposing team is making what could be seen as a misplay by going for my resource node instead of going for the shield generator. They could have gotten some pretty decent damage on that, which would have forwarded their victory condition. And after you take out objectives that forward the victory condition, you get rewarded with requisition. And I believe power as well, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check on that later. But either way, there's a lot that can go on in any given fight in Dawn of War 3. All of the battles, they've got a different spin to them. What units is your opponent building? What's their composition like? Are they focusing a lot on melee, or are they going for a lot of ranged units? And how can you compose your army to counter that? And those are all things that you're supposed to think about when you're playing a real-time strategy game. But you've also got that added layer of the elite units and how you can best manipulate them. And the elite units, they really do feel like characters that could be in League of Legends or Dota or Smite or whatever. But at the core level, it's real-time strategy, even though it's got that bit of It's borrowing a little bit from a different genre. So at this point, I'm focusing on shoring up my defenses. If you take a look at the mini map in the bottom right-hand corner, Bob did manage to take out the shield generator, which means we can turn our attention to the bottom turret once we get our armies rebuilt and ready for another push. Now, this match has been going on for almost 10 minutes, and that's going to put us into Escalation Phase 2. And the escalation phases are my favorite part of the little bits and pieces that have been added to this game, right? And the escalation phases, every 10 minutes, things get tougher for everything. Objectives get stronger, listening posts get stronger, and units, when they die, they refund less resources. So it becomes that much more important to retreat your units and get them reinforced instead of just letting them die on the front lines. So we're in escalation phase 2 now, so things are going to get a little bit harder, and we're going to have to pay more attention to how we manipulate our soldiers if we want to win. And you saw a few moments ago I called out Gorguts. He is another one of my elite units. He is a tank-oriented unit. He's got a big claw on him, kind of like a crab, and he can use that thing to grapple towards enemies and stun them, and then he can wind it up and spin it over his head like a lasso, dealing area of effect damage. And I believe it slows units that get caught in it, but I'm not entirely sure. I'll look it up and put it on screen. Yeah, I'm still very new at the game. I understand a lot of the basics and the fundamentals of playing the game, but there are so many little nuances, so many things to micromanage that yeah, I don't have it all. I don't have an understanding of all of it. And the enemy team is coming for a big push on our resource node again, so I'm going to activate the WAAAGH, and unfortunately that thing takes a minute to charge up, and while it's charging, we're going to take a big amount of punishment on that node. I called out the Storm Boys on top of it, but they're not going to be able to do too much. They're just kind of getting ragged on. I'm kind of using them as a bit of a sacrificial lamb. They only cost 2 elite points, so somebody's got to bite the bullet. Somebody's got to be the patsy, and in this case it is the Storm Boys. But now the WAAAGH is active. My units are coming in with increased damage, using Gorguts' grappling claw ability to get into the back line of the enemies and stun up their ranged units. But unfortunately I'm not going to be able to harass the back line too much, because I believe Gabriel Angelos is doing some damage to my back line, so I've got to send Gorguts there to help them out. But having constructed that barracks near this node, I'm going to be able to reinforce my squads that are standing near it, so even if they do take damage, that damage will get healed back immediately at the cost of a little bit of requisition, and we do have a decent amount of income at the moment. So Gabriel Angelos is running away, trying to get to safety, because we did a number on him with our looters and our elite units as well. And now is definitely a good time to go on the offensive. If you turn your attention to the mini-map again, Bob is putting in work. We haven't been communicating too much. We've each been doing our own thing, but what we're doing together is working. He's focusing on the objectives. I'm defending our base. I'm, harassing the enemy's nodes and keeping them occupied in that way. So it's working for us. It's working very well. You can really see, though, that there is a value in having a good strategy. If you get outplayed by your opponent in a 1 versus 1, or the opposing team in a 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3, they're gonna win. It's not just a matter of having a bigger army. Your composition matters. Your strategy matters. How you approach the map, it matters. One of the biggest complaints that I see about Dawn of War 3 is that the strategy feels like it's lacking, and I just don't find that to be true. Unit positioning is another important thing. The enemy hero Gabriel Angelos, he was doing a number on my back line, and if I didn't have Gorguts, my elite, available to disincentivize him from attacking, then I would have been screwed, and they would have taken the barracks and gone on to the rest of the base. And speaking of the base, I'm recalling all of my units to the base. Look at the minimap once again, and you'll see that Bob is finally getting pushed back. He has done a number on the enemy team. He took out one of their shield generators and their turret, but he's in a bit of trouble now, so I'm coming to help him out. I've preemptively activated the WAAAGH tower, and now I am running my units towards it so they can get that buff and continue charging marching to help out Bob in that bottom section of the map. Boom, the charge has begun. The Orks are coming in hot, and the enemy team is none the wiser. I'm pretty sure they can hear some of the ambient. It's like, is somebody listening to butt rock off in the distance? And yes, it is the motherfucking Ork Boys. So Gorgut's gonna charge in again, using that the grappling claw to stun up some of those backline units. And I have a group of knobs, that is the sort of melee tank unit, activating the taunt, and then Gorgut's gonna channel his spinning claw, which I believe it is called, and that's going to clean up the rest of the enemies. And we've got this one pretty much in the bag at this point. I can only assume that those were the remaining bits of the opposing team's forces. So I'm going to start production on a couple of shooter boys, and then send the rest of my very sizable army to go attack the power core. And at this point, yeah, I really don't think there's much they can do. They've got a couple of basic ranged infantry, but it's not really going to hold up against two elites, a group of shooter boys, a group of looter boys. It's too much to handle at this point. So we've got the win. All I can say is Dawn of War 3 is a very fun game. It's gotten a serious amount of negative criticism, some deserved, some not deserved. To say that there's no strategy involved in this game is not true. To say that there's no depth in the unit management, in the army composition, is just simply not true. To say that there's not a lot of differentiation between the factions, that is simply not true. If you were to say that there are quality of life things missing from the game, yeah, that's very true. You can't rebind your hotkeys. You can't even look at a list of what all the default hotkeys in the game are. What are we, in the fucking Dark Ages? That's a feature that's been a part of games since Blake Stone and the original Doom. I feel like there was a little booklet with press up to go forward. Like it's just basic stuff like that is missing, and it's just an oversight. But at the core, again, fundamentally, the game is very solid and very fun. And I genuinely hope that the developers at Relic make the improvements that the game needs, and by that it's just adding the bits of quality of life that will turn it into a full experience. Because right now it's a very fun experience, and it's just these little bits and pieces that are missing from it that take away from what should be a phenomenal package. So with that said, I think we did pretty well out there. I think we showed that the boys know how to put in work. So if you enjoyed this video, of course, drop a like rating. You know, if you want to see more, just let me know in the comments below. As always, the name of the game, I said it 100 times already, is Dawn of War 3. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.